Trump supporters here.
Greatest movement in the history of our country. I'm fighting for you, and I love doing it with everything that I have. And I will never, ever stop. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online.
And now we're opening with a bang. And today's announcement proves that our economy is roaring back. It's coming back extremely strong. The United States economy added almost 5 million jobs. Likewise, Hispanic employment is up by 1.5 million jobs. 3 million more women were employed in the month of June. This is better than a V. This is a rocket ship.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MAGAnomics. I'm Steve Cortes, Senior Advisor to President Trump's re-election campaign. With me tonight are Lara Trump and the founder and owner of Staffing Solutions, Tino Rivera. Our amazing guests will be joining us later in the show. But first, let's talk about the awful vision Democrats have for the future of this nation. If you tortured yourself, as I have, and actually spent time watching the Democratic National Convention this past week, then you know that the Democrats explicitly offered an economic agenda that would literally take America backwards, back to the days of misbegotten globalism, of an economy that worked well for top executives of multinational corporations and for the connected elites of the Washington corridors of power, but one that consigns working class laborers to a struggle. The Democrats made it clear in both their policy prescriptions as well as their highlighted speakers that the Biden-Harris ticket represents a throwback to globalism, to the pre-Trump era of awful trade deals and submission to China. These committed globalists have fused their agenda with that of leftist radicals of the so-called squad. And together, this coalition of corruption offers a dismal future of stifling regulations, confiscatory tax hikes, and insane policies that will crush President Trump's great American comeback. Let's have a quick rundown of what Joe Biden and the Democrats have in store if they hypothetically control the federal government next year. Joe Biden promises to end tariffs that President Trump smartly imposed upon China. And Biden does not even demand any concessions from the Chinese Communist Party to earn such relief. It's clear that Beijing Biden would quickly put America back into a position of supplication toward that abusive regime. Biden also promises to put America back into the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which would hamstring American industry to the benefit of, you guessed it, China, which would not have to play by the same rules as America. Joe Biden also wants to raise taxes by $4 trillion with a T, $4 trillion over the next decade. He would eliminate President Trump's tax cuts that have saved the average American family of four $2,000. In fact, Biden called these savings that Americans received, quote, negligible. Really, Joe? In Joe Biden's America, 82% of Americans would face tax hikes, eliminating as many as 585,000 good-paying jobs. As I mentioned in the last episode, Joe Biden's energy plan, it's ripped straight from the Green New Deal, and it would eliminate an astounding 10 million jobs from our economy. The former vice president even wants to rejoin the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade deal that would cost America nearly 450,000 jobs. This week, we will be holding the Republican National Convention, where we will officially nominate President Trump as our candidate in the general election against Joe Biden. Unlike the vision Democrats have in mind, you will see at the RNC that President Trump and the Republican Party embrace a vision of prosperity and economic renewal for the American people. President Trump will continue to rebuild the economy as we have seen over the last few months. The president built the economy to historic heights before the coronavirus hit our shores, and now he's doing it again. More than 9 million jobs have been added back to the economy since May, thanks to the president's pro-growth policies, and we can expect more when Americans send President Trump back to the White House for 4 more years. With President Trump in the Oval Office, you can expect more smart, fair trade deals like the USMCA that will add hundreds of thousands of jobs back to our economy. You can expect the president to remain clear-eyed and tough with China. At long last, we have an American leader who recognizes that Beijing has not acted as a trade partner, but rather as a trade exploiter, abusing American workers with the unfortunate complicit assistance of powerful Americans, people like globalist Joe Biden. Trump will confront Chinese firms controlled by the CCP, as evidenced by his recent sanctions on Huawei. The leaders of the Chinese Communist Party deceived all of us, lying about human-to-human transition of the virus when it still could have been isolated in Wuhan. Through the CCP's treachery and malfeasance, they infected the world. But we cannot rewind the clock and change their behavior. And so we begin this great task of rebuilding our economic vitality, reigniting the engine of American enterprise. As I touched on earlier, between May and July, 9.3 million jobs were added back to the economy as America rebounds from the coronavirus pandemic. Housing starts soared 22% in July as Americans began re-entering the housing market. That means nearly 1.5 million Americans began construction on new homes in July alone. In June, existing home sales increased by a whopping 20% from the previous month, the largest monthly gain since the National Association of Realtors began tracking this data. We are clearly witnessing a V-shaped recovery. The economy is growing at an unprecedented rate, and the stock market is booming as a result. The Dow Jones is closing in on 28,000, almost wiping out the loss we saw when the coronavirus hit America. And the S&P 500 just reached a new historic high this past week, completely recovering from the coronavirus plunge that we saw earlier this year. The Trump boom 2.0 is upon us, and we can't risk all the progress we have made by handing the keys over to Basement Biden, a man who spent much of his half-century in the Washington swamp creating jobs in China. When we get right down to it, this election in many ways represents the same choice we had in 2016. It's nationalism versus globalism. President Trump is rebuilding the American economy, bringing jobs back that previous administrations had shipped overseas and claimed could only return with a magic wand. Meanwhile, Joe Biden represents the globalist return to the status quo, where those in power push our jobs, our factories, and our businesses out of the United States, relegating countless Americans to listless lives. Tonight, we will discuss the Republican National Convention with our guests and why it is so important to re-elect President Trump this November. But first, we have a short commercial break. We'll be right back after this.
Kamala Harris ran for president by rushing to the radical left, embracing Bernie's plan for socialized medicine, calling for trillions in new taxes, attacking Joe Biden for racist policies. Voters rejected Harris. They smartly spotted a phony. But not Joe Biden. He's not that smart. Biden calls himself a transition candidate. He is handing over the reins to Kamala while they jointly embrace the radical left. Slow Joe and phony Kamala. Perfect together. Wrong for America.
Joe Biden has embraced the policies of the radical left. Trillions in new taxes, crushing middle-class families.
If you elect me, your taxes are going to be raised, not cut.
Amnesty for 11 million illegal immigrants.
Citizenship for 11 million undocumented folks.
Reducing police funding.
Yes, absolutely.
The radical left has taken over Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Don't let them take over America.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Welcome back. I'm Steve Cortes, and my first guest tonight is Lara Trump, senior advisor to the Trump campaign. Lara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on. Congrats on the show.
Thank you. You know, it's an important show, MAGAnomics. We want to talk about the incredible economy, of course, that Donald Trump built in the first 3 years of his presidency, and the incredible economy that he's going to build again. Right. But we got a very different message, not a hopeful or inspiring message, out of the DNC last week. And the Democratic National Convention, I think, unfortunately, really exposed for America just how radical the Democratic Party has become. You have people like Bernie Sanders and AOC being showcased by the Democratic Convention. I think that really tells you all you need to know. But tell us your thoughts about the radicalization of the Democratic Party.
Well, I mean, you point out AOC, you point out Bernie Sanders, but you need look no further than the two individuals who are now the most radical ticket in American politics history with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Because if you look at where Joe Biden has gone in a very short matter of time, it's very clear that the control in that party is on the extreme far left, that it is no longer the Democrat Party, even of Barack Obama's years. This party now stands for the Green New Deal, open borders, free health care for illegal immigrants. The things that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are running on would fundamentally change America. And they've said that. They've been very clear about that. So when you have these people showcased at the Democrats' convention and up in front of America, they're telling you, believe us now. If you didn't believe us before, Steve, believe us now, because this is the radical socialist party. Now, I don't even call it the Democrat Party anymore, because I don't even know if you can really say that. But I think if there was anything I took from the convention, first of all, it was a very dismal, bleak, dark view of America. I don't want to live in their America. I mean, it wasn't inspiring. It wasn't hopeful. It wasn't showcasing the great talents of our people and what we've always done in this country. But not only that, then they're telling you, but if you choose us, think about how bad it will be, because here's what we're going to do. $4 trillion of taxes. We're going to, kill all the energy jobs in this country. We will no longer be energy independent. We'll be relying again on the Middle East, on Russia. So I didn't think it was hopeful. I didn't think it was inspiring. I don't think it really moved that many people that I could tell. Looking at it and trying to look at it through the lens of possibly an independent voter didn't really do much for me. I wasn't moved. So we'll see what happens.
You know, I think you're exactly right. When I was watching it, I had to say to myself, I don't recognize the America they're talking about. This isn't the America that I know and love. It was, and you're right, it was a dark and almost dystopian description of the United States, totally inaccurate. And I point out to people, because I think there is some legacy bias of people who do remember the Democratic Party back when it did represent workers and when it did represent things like traditional values and gun rights and fundamental principles. But I really try to point out to people, this is not your parents' or your grandparents' Democratic Party. The Biden-Harris ticket of 2020, you're exactly right, is really as far left as it could possibly be. And we are not going to fall for the corporate media narrative that they are moderates. The myth of a moderate Biden or a moderate Kamala Harris. Do you agree?
Oh, it's a total joke. I mean, you're right. The mainstream media is trying to convince people of that. But take Joe Biden and Kamala Harris at their own words. Look at the things that they say that they would do to this country. When we're talking about climbing out of this artificial interruption of our economy based on the coronavirus pandemic, who do you want at the helm? Do you want a guy who's been a businessman his whole life, who gave us the greatest economy in the history of America just 6 months ago? In January, we had 1 million more jobs and we even had people to fill them. Donald Trump did it once. He can and will be doing it again. Or do you want Joe and Kamala, who are going to prioritize illegal aliens in this country over American citizens, who have said, we will raise your taxes? Absolutely. They want a government takeover of health care. So Kamala's plan immediately kicks 160 million Americans off of their private health plans. I mean, this is not the America we can have going forward. The point is, don't buy what the media out there is trying to sell you. These people are radical. They're extreme. They are socialist. They are, and I say it all the time, and I've heard the president now say it, Joe Biden is the Trojan horse for the socialist, radicalized Democrat Party. Do not be fooled, America. He might be a feeble old man, Steve, and he might not know where he is a lot of the time, but they are using him to drive forward their radical ideas for America. This country would never be the same. We would never recover.
Right. No, listen, I think these are such important points, and the American people are too savvy, I think, to accept this myth.
Yeah.
And again, you're so right too that the Democrats, to me, are being surprisingly transparent about their radicalism. And the famous poet and author Maya Angelou once famously said, "When someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time." So I am believing the Democrats when they tell me who they are, when they tell me they want to ruin the American energy sector, when they say they want to flood our workforce with unlawful, unfair, illegal immigrant labor at a time when Americans are finally getting back to work, digging ourselves out of the crisis that China created for our country. The last thing we need is this kind of radicalism. But listen, let's talk about something far more hopeful, and that is the Republican National Convention. And of course, you're deeply involved in the planning. So tell us about the inspiring message that we're going to get from the RNC as opposed to the dismal downer of the DNC.
God, well, it will be a 180-degree turn from what you saw of the Democrats do. I can assure you of that. Look, we celebrate America. That's what we should do. Yes, this has been it's been a rough year, 2020. I mean, murder hornets and all. We've got everything going on. This is the greatest country in the world. There's a reason people risk their lives every day to try and come to America. There's a reason that we have always been the shining beacon in the world for people to aspire to be like. It's the United States. And we're still that amazing country. So you're going to hear a hopeful message, an inspiring message. We're going to talk about the greatness of America, where we've come, like how far we have come truly in our very short history, but how far we still have to go in the plans for the future of this country. And under President Donald Trump, people's American dreams are being realized every day. It is finally happening again for the first time in decades, really. And on the other side of coronavirus, whenever we get our economy back up and running, it's going to be greater than ever before. So you're going to hear that. I think you're going to be surprised to hear a lot of folks who in 2016 bought into the mainstream media narrative of Donald Trump said, I can't vote for him because the media tells me he's a bad guy. They voted, Steve, for Hillary Clinton. And then they got a very quick wake-up call when they started seeing what this president was doing and how he was delivering for this country. They're going to speak at our convention. They're going to tell their stories. So you have the Hollywood elites that we saw the Democrats roll out, all the politicians that nobody wanted to hear from, quite frankly, but they rolled them out anyway, dragged them back up. So it's really the political and Hollywood elites of the Democrats versus our convention, which will be about the American people.
You know, I call it Hollywood versus the heartland.
Yes,
you know, and I think
it
that
really
in many
is.
ways is the contrast, and particularly the first day of their convention, because President Trump was literally in the heartland. He went to Minnesota and Wisconsin that day, the Badger State, which was snubbed by Joe Biden, just as it was snubbed by Hillary Clinton 4 years earlier. And he was there to promote and to demonstrate his commitment to this American renewal, this great economic rebirth that's already happening in our country. And we've talked a lot about it on this show, about the amazing statistics we've gotten recently. We know we have a lot of hard work still to do, but there are really good data-driven reasons to be very optimistic that this is a V-shaped recovery and that the American economic renaissance has begun. Now, for the audience out there, I want to try to give them a sneak peek. I don't know how much you'll reveal regarding the Republican National Convention. Surprise guests, can you let us peek behind the curtain a little bit? What can you do to motivate the audience to tune in this week?
Look, the president will play a role, I'll tell you this, in every single night. So unlike Joe Biden, where he was sort of hidden away, they maybe had him in the library with like some streamers exploding behind him. It truly every night was like the 2-hour infomercial for a product that they never really showed you and you didn't want to buy. Donald Trump will play a role in every single night. There will be surprises that the media's heads are going to explode over. We're gonna bring people out that you probably have seen on TV many times before. People who want to talk about their experience with cancel culture, and everybody's going to recognize them as soon as they come on. So it's going to be great. Look, our whole family will be speaking. You'll hear from the entire Trump family as we did in 2016, except I was the only one that didn't speak, if you can believe it.
Really?
Yes, I know.
Well, that's changing, I hope.
So I'll hopefully be speaking in this one, but it's going to be great. We're going to celebrate our military. We're going to celebrate our veterans. We're going to celebrate America. So it's going to be uplifting and hopeful. And look, we're going to come out of this feeling like the America we should, instead of this depressed depressing, just dark and awful, Democrats' version of America. Nobody wants that.
Laura, I think that's so important because, of course, the policies have to be right, and they are in this country. The policies, the conditions to create growth in this country, to allow entrepreneurs to flourish, to give confidence to consumers. And we see that. We see that in our housing stats. We see it in industrial production, that we are gaining confidence. This country is doing what this country always does, which takes on a challenge. We didn't invite this challenge, certainly. We certainly didn't welcome this challenge. It was thrust upon us, frankly, by the treachery of the Chinese Communist Party. But nonetheless, it's a challenge that we have to meet, and we are as a country. So I think that kind of aspirational part is also important, though. The policies have to be right, but also the intangibles, the belief in ourselves, the confidence that we can do it, that we've met these kinds of challenges before. So I, for one, look really forward to the RNC, because I think it will be that kind of uplifting message, that we need. Let's talk about this then, too, as far as aspirations into the second term. Obviously, we know we want to grow the economy significantly. What are some of the goals, economically speaking, for the second term that we hope begins in January?
Well, I'll tell you, it really depends on a lot of people at home. Look, not only do we want to reelect President Trump, but we have to regain control of Congress, as we've seen, truly in order to get things done, because we know that the Democrats will do all they can to stop this president, no matter how good whatever it is he's trying to do would be for this country, right? So we need to make sure that not only are we voting for President Trump, but we're voting Republican all the way down the ticket. That way, Steve, we can have great things happen, like, a comprehensive health care plan that takes back over where the Obama administration failed America. Let's give people, that's what this president said, I want to have an incredible health care plan set forth for the American people. That is something he's very focused on. I think infrastructure in the second term is going to be something that this president absolutely focuses on. We know he's going to finish building the wall. But look, in terms of the economy, you said it. I think we're starting to see the V-shaped recovery. I think we want to see, GDP grow in this country. We want to see people succeed. We want people to get back to the place where we had the million more jobs and we had people to fill them, that we don't need to raise the minimum wage because it is naturally rising, because people's wages were going up in this country before, again, the artificial coronavirus interruption. I think people know. I think people know what this president can do. I think they know what his administration can do. He cuts through red tape. He wants to see small businesses succeed. That's why you've seen through the Paycheck Protection Program, this president wasn't just looking out for the physical health of American people throughout this coronavirus. He was looking out to make sure that economically they could stay afloat, that small businesses could stay going. So I think we want to get things back up and running. And then we want to move even further. Look, we just heard that the Chinese are officially coming back for more trade talks, right? So think about a phase 2 China trade agreement. You've seen that finally NAFTA is out of there. USMCA was implemented officially in July. These are all things that are really going to help the American people and help our economy, help jobs, manufacturing, et cetera. So it's really exciting, and we need 4 more years, but we have to remember, we got to take back control of the House. And maintain control of the Senate in order to get these things done.
That's a great point. And I'm so focused on reelecting the president that I sometimes neglect to talk about or think about the down ballot stuff, which is, of course, so crucial. Because even I live in Chicago, and even in deeply blue Illinois, there are at least 2, maybe 3 congressional seats that absolutely could be flipped. So that's a great point. Of course, we need to reelect the president, but let's also give him the tools in Washington, D.C., the cooperators on the Hill who also want the same vision for America First that we want. So, Lara Trump, thank you so much for being my guest tonight. I sure appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
You bet. And we'll be right back, folks.
As we have already seen, his America First agenda has lifted all Americans up and have empowered them with true economic emancipation that has once again made the American dream possible. That's why I want you to text EMPOWER to 88022 right now if you want to keep America great and deliver 4 more years for President Donald J. Trump.
We know you want to give Donald Trump 4 more years to fight for you in Washington, but he isn't just up against Joe Biden. He's up against the Democrat fundraising machine, and he needs all the help he can get. Don't just assume because his opponent hasn't completed a single sentence that this campaign is over. Crazy things happen, like this woman becoming Speaker of the House. Support the president today by texting Trump to 88022. Donald Trump is counting on every single one of his supporters to text Trump to 88022 now.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to MAGAnomics. I'm Steve Cortes, and I'm joined now by my friend Fortino Rivera. He's the founder and owner of Staffing Solutions in California. Tino, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
You bet. So, Fortino, your job is jobs, meaning your firm places people. So tell us, because of course this is a critical part of the American recovery, what I call the Great American Comeback that's commencing in this country. And a critical part of it, of course, is the labor market. We're really thrilled in this country that we've added over 9 million jobs over the last 3 months. We think there's a lot more job additions to come, but we want to hear from you, from somebody who's on the ground in this business of placing people. What's your assessment, Tino, of the jobs market right now?
It's getting stronger each day. Last month, I believe we added over 500,000 jobs in California, and July was a little lower, but it was still good. I'm getting orders every day, and I am seeing a lot in distribution because I think there's a lot of pinned up demand that has to get goods out to the users, and those particular companies are actually backed up. But for the most part, we're getting orders across the board. And I'm talking about professional, clerical, and light industrial because I cover the whole spectrum.
Okay. Well, and speaking of that, I do want to hear more about your firm, because one of the things we try to do on the show on MAGAnomics is we talk about the economy from a macro perspective, what's going on in terms of national data, capital markets, stocks and bonds, that sort of thing. But then also on the micro level, what are business owners? What are entrepreneurs, people like you? What are they seeing in the street? What do they need in terms of policy? What scares them in terms of policies on the other side? So I really would please tell the audience about your firm. What types of businesses rely on your firm? And then how do you also find on the other side of the equation, how do you find the candidates to place them?
Sure. So we cater a lot to food industry, distribution. We do a lot in the aerospace industry, medical, even dental. So we are in a lot of areas where people need our workers because those jobs are essential. Let me back up. There's about 55 clients I have. I would say about 20 of those are essential. They never closed during this pandemic. Okay. Somehow they made it work. They organized, they made safety arrangements, and they were fine. But my business, I would say 60% focuses on what we consider light industrial, which is warehouse, factories, where you're using labor, but not hard construction labor, but more like a lighter labor. Mm-hmm. And then we do about 40%, which I categorize as clerical, admin, direct hire, and even technical, high-end technical. And both divisions are very busy right now. I have orders on both sides. It's interesting. I still see a hard time finding certain candidates, even though we're in this pandemic.
Really? Okay. And I want to hear about that side of the equation in terms of the candidates. So how does your firm go about finding the people to take these positions?
We use a lot of avenues. We are very active in Yelp and in Google searches. So our name comes up, people who've used our services comes up. So I think that does better sometimes than the paid advertisement that we do, like on Indeed, Career Builder, a lot of these other social media type organizations or job search organizations. So we really don't use one way. We try to attack the problem on a large scale through all these, because before you could put an ad in Career Builder and you could draw a lot of people. Now you're getting a trickle. So you got to get a trickle here, a trickle there. So we're trying to get the numbers up just by getting a few here, a few there. There's not one special place.
Okay, gotcha. Tino, tell us about your business. How did you start it? And
Sure.
Is it a family affair?
I started the business with a partner back in 2004. My partner's a woman, and we both work in a staffing firm where we met. And I was just there a year; she was there a few months. But prior to that, years prior, I worked at Goodwill Industries, and I helped people get jobs. And even though they had disabilities, we were able to assist them. And that always I liked that job. I liked doing that. It gave me pleasure and satisfaction. Then I went into international sales, and then I came into staffing. But staffing is unique. I did have family. My wife, my son helped me in the early stages of the business. As the company started to grow, I could hire people to do some of the things they were helping me with. I call it a family because our staff is so tight. I have employees that have been with us 5 years, 10 years, some going close to 15 years. So we've been blessed. We try to be very fair with the type of people, the people that we work with. We want them to go away with a good experience because, honest to God, they are the best marketers for your business. And if they go tell a neighbor or a colleague, hey, these guys treat you well, they give you respect, they get back to you. We just try to do the little things that make us stand apart from some of our competitors.
Sure.
And we've been successful, thank God.
Tino, I really think, and I really mean this, and I'm not just saying this because I admire you, but I think that entrepreneurs are just the unsung heroes of American society. They don't get enough attention. We spend so much time talking about big business CEOs, and I think we should spend more time talking about and celebrating entrepreneurs who may not be famous, but who are making huge differences in our society, providing opportunity and employment for people, and people like you who are doing business the right way, who are ethical about the way they approach their firm, and thankfully, in your case, you've been incredibly successful. So I also want to ask you, though, Tino, you're a Southern California lifer. So tell us, what do you love about Southern California, and what are the challenges of living there?
I'll start with the challenges. I work with a lot of companies, and I'm seeing a lot of them struggle because of the restrictions, taxes, and if you get a Biden come into the picture, you know it's going to get even worse. And they all have a threshold. They can only operate under these costs, and if the costs go beyond that, it doesn't make sense to stay here. Right. They're going to go to Texas or Arizona, and I don't want to see that because they're good people, they're good companies. You know, they provide jobs locally, taxes locally, and to the state, and it's just very frustrating to me because it doesn't have to be that way. The positives, obviously, the weather. We have a great port in Long Beach. A lot of goods come through that port. There's a lot of business in Southern California, a lot of people who are inventing things, who are developing new technology, and it's exciting to be around here. But sure. Like I said, it just frightens me that if things change, you're going to see the economy here in this state just kind of come to a standstill.
Right. And it's so important, obviously, not just to the people who live in California, but to our entire country. You know, to your point, when you talk about the creativity of California, I often will sort of joke, but I really mean it, that there is probably more creative energy in the state of California than there is in the entire rest of the world. When you're talking about whether it's tech or Hollywood, it's really incredible the amount of innovation that comes out of the state of California, in spite of all the hurdles that are in front of business by that unfortunate, fully democratic leadership there. And by the way, I'm not throwing stones. I live in Illinois, which is unfortunately just as afflicted by terrible policies, by stifling taxation, by corruption as California is. But let me ask you this too, on a personal level. You're fairly outspoken conservative. Is it problematic to be a conservative in California?
Yes, it is. The good thing with me is I've always told people where I stand, and I make it known, and I give back a lot. And I think that's important as patriots, people who love America. We need to get down into the ground level and let our actions speak for our words. And I think that has helped me. Obviously, you always have people leaving notes or messages on social media or even your website or things of that nature. But, you know, it doesn't bother me because I know the cause is the right cause and we're moving in the right direction. If we go with Biden, it's just going to kill everything. And, you know, I'm seeing more Hispanics, the Black people that are friends of mine. I see them coming around and I see them understanding things, and it's going to be interesting. I will tell you that.
Sure. No, and to that point, Tino, you know, in both public and private polling, the president is doing extremely well among Hispanics. I think he's going to do even better than the polling indicates, because I think there's a lot of Hispanics out there who are understandably reluctant to tell a stranger, a pollster, that they support President Trump. But even if the polls are accurate where they currently are, we're going to do as well among Hispanics, better than we did actually in 2016. And that is enough to probably make the electoral map nearly impossible for Joe Biden. Of course, we're not going to assume anything. We're not going to get complacent. We've got to work really hard for the next 2 months plus to make sure that the people know about this message of renewal for this country, including the economy. And I want to ask you about that then, as a business owner, Tino. President Trump and the economy that he has enabled, how has it specifically helped your firm?
You know, it's given us the ability to pick and choose our clients, because when you're needed more people are calling on you, and we can pick the better companies to work with. So I can be more selective. Obviously, we make more money because we can charge more because more people are being needed for these businesses to operate. So it is a nice thing. It's like riding a wave, and I love it because it's been so awesome. And I may have told you this in the past. We were having a hard time finding workers, not only at the minimum wage level, but even at the mid-level, the high level. It was getting really kind of hard. It was like we were digging and digging just to find a few candidates, but that's because the economy was doing so well. It was just, it was amazing. And it's going to be, again, amazing.
You know, and I know that can be a bit of a pain in the neck for you, but that's good news for the country, right? If you're having a hard time finding people to take jobs, that is good news for America, even though for Staffing Solutions and Fortino, it can present a challenge, I understand. How about on the other side of the equation? Let's say, God forbid, if Joe Biden were to become president of the United States, what worries you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, what worries you most about a Biden win?
Taxes, regulations. We're already in a tough state, California, and I can just imagine how these businesses are going to freak out when that happens, because, you know, it was going good, and I think everyone was doing well, and to turn it, you know, 190 is not going to be good.
Right.
That's going to be horrible.
Understood. Well, let's not let that happen, huh, Tino?
Nope.
Let's work really hard. Now, how about just career advice? Because this is your business. Lots of Americans, unfortunately, are looking for work right now. And that's nobody's fault. It's not their fault. It's only the fault of the Chinese Communist Party that made a willful decision to deceive the world, to infect the world and crash the global economy. Thankfully, there's a lot of reasons to be really optimistic. You've talked about what you're seeing in your business. We've talked on this show about what we're seeing in the macro economy from the data. I believe we are roaring back right now. But nonetheless, we still know that a lot of people are out of work and are looking. So can you give career advice? What's your advice for people who are out of work right now, who are looking? What would you tell them as a placement expert?
Sure. Number one would be updating your resume. A lot of people don't update it, and then they make one resume for every position. That shouldn't be the case. If you're a sales and marketing guy, you should have two resumes: one that focuses on sales, one that focuses on marketing. You gotta kind of morph it to that position so that the person reading it really says, okay, this person really understands this position and the requirements and has the experience to back it up. Number two, I would say, if you use an agency like mine, you might want to apply with more than one agency. I tell people it doesn't offend me if you go apply with other agencies, because I know how it feels to be looking for work. The more people who see your resume, the higher your chances are of finding job faster. So those would be the top two, I would say.
Fabulous. Hey, that's great concrete advice. Tino Rivera, you're a great American. Very proud of everything you've done there in Southern California to grow your firm, to help people find jobs. It's amazing. Again, your job is jobs. That's fantastic. And certainly appreciate your support for President Trump as well. Thanks for being our guest tonight.
Thanks, Steve.
You bet. Folks, we'll be right back.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message. I need you to stand with me right now and show the fake news and their partner, the Democrats, that no matter what they throw at us, we will keep fighting, and we will keep winning, and we will make America great again.
We need your help to defend our great country against Joe Biden and the radical Democrats. The stakes could not be any higher this November. We need all the patriots at home watching right now to join our fight to re-elect President Donald J. Trump. Here's how you can get involved. Download the new groundbreaking Trump 2020 app, now available on Apple and Android. To stay in contact with us, please text Trump to 88022. If you or your friends, family, or neighbors want to be involved in our fight to re-elect President Donald J. Trump, please visit armyfortrump.com to sign up. We would like to thank our amazing guests today, Lara Trump and Tino Rivera, for joining us this evening. And a special thank you to all our amazing supporters watching at home. We will see you again next time on MAGAnomics.